بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'm Ahmed Sultan Asiri and I will start presenting our senior project myLabs or مختبراتي in this code demo with my colleague Mostafa Khalid Ramadan. When the laboratory manager tries to add a new item into the laboratory, this function will be called in the API route. This function takes as an argument the item data, which is the HTTP request body and the laboratory object itself. The first two if conditions check if the required values are exist in the HTTP request body or it's not null. If one of the if conditions is true, the request will be aborted with 400 status code. After that, we check if the type of the item is exist in the database or not. If it is not, no result found exception will be raised. After that, we check the expire date format. If it is incorrect, the value error will be triggered. After that, we check if the validity of the expire date and the quantity. At the end of this function, we try to add the laboratory item into the database. First, we create it as a Python object and then insert it. After the insertion process, we add the foreign keys of the laboratory and the laboratory manager on it. If any error happen, these exceptions will be executed. First, if foreign key error happen, this integrity error will be triggered. And for date error, if the added date or expired date is incorrect format, this one will be raised. If one of the tables is not exist in the database, this one will be triggered. And for the columns, if one of the columns we give it a wrong names, this one will be raised. And for the inbound execution, if the SQL connection is not established, this one will be triggered. At the end of the function, we will return the lab item for the API route.
When we initiate a new practical experiment request, we have request and school object in parameter. First, we need to check the attributes are exist in the request or not. Then, we need to get the lab by ID from the database. If no result found, this exception will execute. Then we need to check the class number is between 1 and 7. After that, we need to check the format of execute date. If there is any issue with that, the value error exception will execute. After that, we need to check the lab is booked in the same time for another experiment or not. Then we need to get the practical experiment of the ministry. If no result found, this exception will execute. Then we need to check if the science teacher can initiate this experiment based on the course he teach. If the science teacher has no any course to teach, attribute error will execute. After that, we need to calculate the quantity required for this experiment. Finally, we need to create new request object and insert into database. Sometimes insert process has issue. So if there is any issue with the foreign key and primary key, integrity error will execute. If the table not exist in database, no such table error will execute. If the column not exist, no such column error will execute. If there is no connection with the database or connection was closed, unbounded execution error will execute.